It's my pleasure to welcome you tonight for our first Being the Story Live, brought to you using the power of Zoom. You're joining me from all around the UK and as far away as California. Tonight, we aim to inspire new ideas, challenge perceptions, and stimulate conversation on the big health and social issues facing us today, which have been exacerbated as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. I'm proud to be introducing an incredible lineup of speakers tonight, important voices who need to be heard. Most of our speakers have faced life-changing experiences and are using those experiences to come up with solutions for change. Their communities and wider society. Being the story gives them a platform for their ideas. This is something that really drives me through my work, to diversify the voices we hear in mainstream conversation, including the media and other areas like policy. This work is more important than ever, as life in lockdown has shown us. Sound Delivery was set up to work alongside underrepresented communities and members of society to help build confidence, skills and support to share their experiences publicly. These are the people who have solutions to change. A night like tonight gives us an opportunity to really listen to what our speakers have to say. But before we get started, I want to run through a few bits of housekeeping to help you get the most out this evening. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, you'll get used to it. I think we're all going to get used to it. You can switch off your camera if you don't want anyone to see you. But what we do ask is that you don't unmute yourself. If you would like to share your thoughts during the talks and responses, you can do that in the chat at the bottom of the screen. There's going to be 5 speakers this evening, and their talks will last from 7 to 12 minutes. At the end of each talk, we're doing a bit of an experiment, and we're going to unmute your microphones briefly to allow you to clap or show your appreciation. You'd probably just have to click a button that says accept being unmuted. We're also going to take pictures this evening, so if you don't want to be in a picture, you can turn your camera off, but the pictures are going to be mostly of the speakers. As with any live event, meeting other people and sharing thoughts is part of the experience, and that's no different tonight. After the 3rd speaker, you're going to be invited to move to what we call a breakout room with some of the other people here this evening. If you've not had that experience before, you simply just press a button that comes on and you'll see it on your screen. But don't worry, I'll remind you about that later. Finally, this evening, our speakers are going to be sharing some difficult personal experiences. We know that sitting at home might magnify those feelings, and we recognise that it might be triggering. Please do reach out. You can privately message us in the chat room and someone can give you a call to check on you afterwards. We'll also leave time at the end of the evening to also connect as well. And throughout the evening, we're going to share relevant contact details for other sources of support. If you want to tweet about tonight, you can use the hashtag Being the Story. And if you don't, that's absolutely fine. You could just sit back and listen. This evening, we have our own artist in residence, the wonderful Mel, who'll be capturing the insights from our speakers throughout this evening. Hello, Mel. Can we see you there?
Yes, hello.
Wow, you already started. Looks great. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Really looking forward to what you're going to create throughout the evening.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to listening to everybody.
Great, thank you. So we're going to start this evening with our youngest ever Being the Story speaker, Nylah Abitimo-Jones. She's 7 years old and was born in Gulu, Uganda, and now lives in Cheltenham with her mum, dad, and sisters Amito and Akele. Nylah has had a very memorable experience of lockdown, as on the 8th of June, she performed her poem Black in front of over 5,000 people at a Black Lives Matter protest in Cheltenham. Inspired by rapper Dave's song Black, videos of her performance went viral and have been watched across the world by millions, reposted and shared by celebrities like Missy Elliott and platforms like Now This, BBC, Al Jazeera, and across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Let's take a look.
More protests following the death of George Floyd in the United States have taken place today. Here's our political editor, Laura Kuentsberg.
Black, listen. Black is beautiful, black is excellent, black is love, black is...
A 7-year-old on the stage.
Colour, black books on my bookshelves.
A protest, not a picnic, in Cheltenham this afternoon.
If you woke up today wanting to try something new and you're proud and ready to shine, this goes out to you.
I love being black and I love inspiring everybody.
How strongly do you feel about this Black Lives Matter campaign?
Very strong.
Why?
Because it's not fair to treat people how they do right now.
So what does it mean to be young, gifted and black in 2020? I'd like to welcome Nylah to our Being the Story stage to perform some of her poems, and then she'll chat to me about her experience of lockdown. Hello, Nylah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nylah, and this is my poem, Black. Black, listen. Black is beautiful, black is excellent. Black is love, black is elegant. Black is my favourite colour, black books on my bookshelves. Daddy told us if they don't teach us, then we should teach ourselves. Mama swears shea butter so I shine and love myself. Please don't touch my hair, it's like taking our wealth. Dave said the truth, they are erasing it. So I talked to Mum and Dad, our family tree, we are tracing it. Black is the future. Me and my sisters, we are making it. Sports day last summer, the gold medal, I was taking it.
That's wonderful. And you've got your second poem?
Eugene. A Choli gal born in Uganda. I like Mirinda, I like Fanta. I like mango, I like guava. I like chapati, I like cassava. Yo, Akuna Matata, Ayela Pe. It means no worries for the rest of your days. I like my hair in an afro and I like it in braids. I like to sit around the fire and learn about the olden days. My great-granddad was a chief who travelled around the world. I love hearing stories about him since I was a little girl. Proud to be from UG. It's Africa's pearl. I can feel it in my heart and you can see it in my curls.
Was so fantastic. Those performances were great. Can you tell us a bit about Black and UG?
I wrote Black last year with my dad. We always write remixes of my favourite songs together. Usually I like freestyling over instrumental beats. My poem Black was inspired by the song Black by rapper Dave. Originally I wrote it as a rap, but decided to perform it as a poem at the Black Lives Matter.
So you've been described on social media as a leader and as a star. How would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as someone who loves to sing, rap, act and perform poetry about my life, my culture and things that I love.
So describe for us here, how did it feel to share your poetry at the Black Lives Matter protest in front of so many people?
I felt excited and ready to share my poetry because I've loved performing since I was 2 years old.
Yeah, and I saw, it went viral. Missy Elliott shared it. How amazing. So why do you think it's important for you to speak out about your experience of being Black? Why do you want to write poetry and speak at events? How does it make you feel when people respond to you and say nice things to you?
It's important because we don't talk about it in school, and I think we should. I love being Black and I want to tell people why.
So who are your role models? Who inspires you to speak out?
I love music, so some of my role models are Georgia Smith, Stormzy, Beyonce, people who are proud of themselves and who they are. Since I was a little girl, I've loved hearing stories about people like Nelson Mandela and Rosa Parks. I've even dressed up as her for World Book Day, and last year I dressed up as Malcolm X. Naomi Campbell also inspires me, and I've been working on a project with the BBC about her. Wow, that is so. What's it about Naomi Campbell? What do you like about her? Why would she be your role model? Because she works hard and she never gives up. Works hard and never gives up. That is such a good thing. So, what's been the reaction from your family and friends? What have they been saying to you, and your sisters? What do they think about you being on Blue Peter and on the 10 o'clock news? What have they been saying to you? They have been really excited. My great-granddad is in the audience tonight. Hi, Grans. He always supports everything I do. And my family in Uganda are also really proud of me too. Oh, well, I would probably say you've got another 100 fans in this room at this moment who are going to be following what you're doing. So you've got one more poem that you're going to share with us this evening, which I think everyone will love. Can you tell us a bit about Shine before you start it? Shine is all about believing in yourself and trying something new with courage. Blue Peter asked me to write it for their Silver Badge Week. I went up to Media City in Manchester during lockdown to record it at their studios. I got to meet all the presenters and Henry the dog. That's great. So for your final poem, here's Nylah and Shine. Shine. If you woke up today wanting to try something new and you're proud and ready to shine, this goes out to you. Or if you need a little help to believe in yourself, you've got this, you can do it. It's time to try something else. I want you to sparkle like a shooting star. Just find it in your heart. You see, when we try our best, that's already a success. Never give up. Come on, say it with your chest. Practice 1,000 times. Practice every day. Practice makes perfect. That's what Dad always says. Believe in yourself. You know you are a winner. Are you a poet or a dancer or a rapper or a singer? Or are you sporty or a chef who can cook a yummy dinner? It's up to you. Go on, try something new. Do it Silver Badge style. Think of what you could do. So we're gonna...
Well done. Hey.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Nylah, for your poetry and being with us tonight. I can't wait to follow your adventures, which I know your dad, Josh, shares with pride. So thank you for being our first speaker tonight, our youngest speaker tonight, and really good luck with everything you do. Bye. Thank you. So that was Nylah. Our next speaker is Alex Rush, who is 15 and lives in Rochdale. Alex has spent the last 2 years being a young activist with Manchester-based Reclaim, a youth leadership and social change charity that supports working class young people. The pandemic affected communities in different ways, and Alex faced it head on as his parents are both key workers working on the front line. His dad works in a wholesale supermarket and his mum in a special educational needs school. But has enough been done to ensure that key workers, like Alex's parents, are seen as the indispensable workforce?
For me, it's my mum.
For me, it's my stepmom, Vanessa.
For me, it is my dad.
For me, it's Izzy.
It's my mum.
For me, it's my mum's friend.
For me, my key worker is my mum and dad.
She's a support worker, and her job is to make sure that she cares for the people that need the extra bit of support.
She's helping vulnerable children while their parents are out helping us.
He is responsible to make sure that all the Morrison depots across the country send out enough food to the supermarkets.
She created loads of resource packs for the young people to keep our minds busy.
She's a key worker, she works in school.
She's a nurse carer and she's saving people's lives.
My mum's on the front line at Redwood, which is a secondary school that looks after special needs kids. My dad, he works at Booker's.
Right now, we're learning who's indispensable in Britain. The people who quietly keep this country going when everyone else has to be at home. So, we just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks,
Izzy.
Define working class. Making ends meet on a fiver for the week till your mum gets paid. Grafting at the local corner shop at 15. Saving months and months for a new game because you don't want mum paying. Meeting dad at the local asking about the man he went to meet about a dog. Running to the shop because you've run out of electric. Friday night Chinese from Jenny's every month. The shopkeeper letting you off 20p. Going to Nan's after school because she's the best cook. Hugging mum after an argument with a boss. Not being able to sleep on Christmas Eve. Listening to an argument out the window of your council flat. Your mum getting a call from school even though you've done nothing wrong. Winding up your brothers and sisters and getting chased through the house. Babysitting the kids around the corner. Mum calling you down for tea. Just 5 more minutes, ma'am. Let me finish this game. Asking mum for money to go to the shop with the last quid. Knocking on for your best mate next door and not going in till 9 o'clock. A Mexican standoff with your neighbour that everyone hates. Kicking the ball over into next door's garden for the 78th time this week. Pretending to be the footballer you idolise. Getting a good grade at school and making mum and dad proud. Now let's define the word indispensables and what it means to me. How does it link to working class life through the time of COVID? An indispensable is an absolute necessary. Like butter to bread. They are real life heroes that risk their lives and families to keep the nation going and provide help and support to all classes and communities. So let's think about the Incredibles. Each family member has a superpower and they use them together to create bonds and change lives. Now imagine my mum gets home after a stressful day at work wearing a sweaty hot face mask. She's had a long 8-hour day shift supporting young people. She gets through the door, a bruise being poured, a bath being run, and I've told her I was smashed my first citizenship test and her face lights up for the first time today. My dad gets home after being sworn at for just doing his job and trying to protect his family from COVID. After a long day's graft, providing food to the public, how would that make you feel? He turns on the news and Cummins has broken the rules because from his ivory tower, he's above all of us. No work for the weekend. It's Thursday night and the eldest has just got home from work travelling around Manchester in a van in the roasting weather, providing joys to the takeaways to dish out happiness to the public. It's 8 o'clock, time to clap. Time to reward hard workers with a clap. I'm there with my family and neighbours. We're clapping, the cars are beeping and the spirits are high. The importance of key workers isn't appreciated enough. What? A clap? No, that's not enough because some don't even clap. These people are out risking their life for all of us. We just need to stay at home, lie in bed eating pot noodles and watching Netflix, yet some of us fails to do so. But why should we if Cummins fails to do so? pour a glass and talk. Scrolling through social media, seeing well-known people moan about lockdown whilst sat in one of their 8 bedrooms staring at the pool. Since the start of lockdown, I've known my parents were indispensable. I could see they were needed more than ever. The appreciation and love for my mum and dad has always been there. But throughout the pandemic, there have been times where we've had to help keep each other going. I love everything they do for me. They're my number one. There have been many highs and lows in the pandemic, and I will say it's been an experience like no other. There were days where I didn't even get out of bed, and there's days where we were all laughing in the garden. I will take respect from the pandemic and appreciate life more. I feel that the government needs to focus on helping young people with extra support to boost morale and confidence, because we need more than a clap. We need to make these people feel proud. We need to reward these people. We need to make these people feel like the heroes they are. Because as John Lennon once said, a working class hero is something to be.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was absolutely great. And when I listen to you and Nylah, it really gives me hope for the future. I see that there are young leaders who are ready to speak up for others and are committed to creating real, tangible change for our communities. So I really appreciate that, Alex. And we're going to share in the chat some information about the charity that Alex works for, Reclaim. They're doing some incredible work at the moment. You might have seen, like this weekend, they went viral because someone who should remain nameless, actor, was trying to take the name Reclaim to create a new political party. That won't happen under Reclaim the Charities Watch or any of ours. So it would be great to go and have a look at Melissa and see, you know, it's been lovely to hear young voices. I mean, when do we hear young voices like that? We need to hear more young voices. So Melissa, should we have a quick look at what you've, just a quick look at the writing? Wow. That looks so good. Love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So we will come back to you. Thank you very much. And don't forget, you can share your thoughts in the chat and also on Twitter using the hashtag Being the Story, or you can just take in the ideas from our talks. I have known our next speaker for the last year, as she's been involved in training I've delivered for the Family Rights Group. The Family Rights Group works with parents whose children are in need, at risk, or are in the care system, and with members of the wider family who are raising children unable to remain at home. They're often referred to as kinship carers. Angela Frazer-Wicks is a founding member of the Family Rights Group Parents Panel, one of their expert panels of family members with direct lived experience of the child welfare and family justice system. Angela regularly speaks about her experience of the child welfare system to highlight issues facing families in the hope of creating systemic change. Angela has campaigned for many years to have the voices of families heard. Some of what Angela will share tonight may be triggering, and we'll share support contacts in the chat. Saying goodbye in lockdown, let me introduce you to Angela Frazer-Wicks.
Thanks, Jude. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow those two. I mean, how inspirational are they? I'm Angela, and I'm what's known as a birth mum. This basically means that the children I gave birth to were removed by social services and adopted. I'm also mum to a little girl who's had no social services involvement at all. I'd like to tell you just a small part of my story and the impact that lockdown has had on me and other families. As Jude said, some of this may be upsetting and triggering, so please do reach out if it is. At 6 p.m. on the 28th of February 2004, I was given less than 6 hours to live. I was in intensive care and had end-stage liver failure. The doctors had run out of ways to save me. I'd taken an overdose, aided by my abusive partner, so that I could be forever free of the abuse that I'd suffered my entire life. All that remained was for me to say a final goodbye to my children. The decision to have them adopted had already been made by social services, and it was this decision that had finally tipped me over the edge. So, social workers collected my children and headed to the hospital. I prepared for my goodbye, I planned what I would say, how I would explain to them how much I loved them, and give them my blessing to move on and be happy with their new family. So I lay and I waited. And then the snow began to fall. And I lay watching it get heavier and heavier until all I could see out of the window was white. The phone outside my room rang and I already knew what they were going to say. The roads were blocked. I wouldn't get to say goodbye. I wouldn't get to see my boys that one last time. I wouldn't get to hold them and tell them I loved them. Life had dealt me one last cruel blow. A nurse came to sit with me so that my final hours wouldn't be spent alone. And as we sat and talked, I began to get angry. I felt cheated. I wanted to say goodbye. So I decided to fight. No one knows how or why, but I made it out of intensive care, then out of hospital, and finally into a refuge. There wasn't much of a person left, just a shell. But that shell was still living and breathing and fighting. Over the next few weeks, I prepared for the goodbye that I'd fought for my life for. I bought gifts and cards. I planned what I would say to my sons. I made albums of photos so that they would know who they were and where they had come from. I chose 2 teddy bears that had been mine as a child so that they'd have a small piece of me to take with them into their new lives. And then, on the afternoon of the 2nd of July 2004, after only 45 minutes together, I carried my children to a car. I fastened them into their car seats, gave them a big kiss, and I said my goodbye. I stood back, plastered a smile on my face, and I watched them drive away. Forever. That day was the last time I heard my children's laughter. It was the last time I watched them play. It was the last time we held one another. My sons were aged 18 months and 5 years old. The system that I'd turned to for support and the people within it had decided that I was no longer fit to be their parent, and they were being given to someone who was. They were being adopted, and legally, I was no longer their mum. And I know what you're all thinking. What did I do? I must have done something terrible, something horrific, if I wasn't allowed to be their mum anymore. The reality is, I was deemed to be what's known as a potential risk of future emotional harm to my children, meaning I may do something to harm them in the future. There was no real evidence for this. The reasons given were my circumstances at the time. Granted, they were pretty awful circumstances. I was a drug addict, I was in a really abusive relationship, and I had extremely complex mental health problems. And again, I guess you're probably thinking that social services must have tried to help me before taking away my children. I must have been offered support. They must have taken the time to get to know me and understand me before they handed down what is in effect a life sentence. In a word, no. Because if they had, they would have found that the majority of the problems I had were as a result of childhood trauma, of a lifetime of abuse and neglect. They would have discovered my potential for change, my determination to be a good parent, and my desire to change the way I was living. I was well aware things weren't right. I just didn't know how to fix them on my own. Sadly, there simply wasn't the time, resources, or facilities to help me. So off my sons went to their magical fix-it-all home, whilst I was left behind, alone and utterly lost. And every year on the 2nd of July, I've looked back at that awful day, and all I could ever see was pain and negativity. The room we spent our last time together in was dirty and cramped, full of tables and chairs, with a pile of tatty toys in one corner. I had to find a space to squeeze in with my children as we tried to fit the rest of our lives into 45 minutes, sharing gifts and photos, singing songs, laughing, crying, praying that time would stop and they would be with me forever. The worst day of my life. and I'm imagining the worst day of their lives too. Never once in all these years did I think that I would look back and think, wasn't I lucky? But COVID and lockdown have shown me exactly that. Due to COVID restrictions, I've been hearing of families who aren't getting to say goodbye face to face. They aren't getting to share gifts or kiss one another goodbye. They have to say goodbye to a screen, then turn off the computer and feel the pain and isolation without the happy memories to keep them going. And the true numbers of these cases aren't even known yet. I've even heard of a case where a group of older siblings didn't get to say goodbye to their little sister at all. Their foster carer received an email to say the adoption was finalised and the little girl was gone. Forever. No goodbye, no memories, no keepsakes. Just gone. And even I can't imagine the hell that they must feel. At least I got to wave my boys goodbye. I got to smell them and hold them one last time. Honestly, don't think I could have continued had I not. I don't think I could have picked myself up and found the strength to carry on living. That goodbye had been the only thing keeping me alive. But carry on I did. Because they underestimated me. My potential for recovery, my sheer tenacity and stubborn-mindedness. They underestimated my strength and my courage. You see, they promised me I could write to my children, a promise I then made to my 5-year-old son, a promise that they didn't keep. So I fought. With help and support, I secured what's known as letterbox contact, a way to send letters through a third party to communicate with my sons. Once a year, my boys came back into my life, and I came back into theirs. We shared achievements and experiences, and I found renewed motivation to make changes. I left my abusive partner. I got clean and sober. I started helping those who would help me reunite with my boys. I began to speak at events, write about my experiences, share with others the way I'd coped and survived. I eventually went on to wonderful things, to love and happiness and marriage, and to have another child. My daughter's now 9 and has had no social services involvement whatsoever. I found the Family Rights Group, a charity that fights for the rights of children to be raised safely within their family, and together we began to fight for the voices of families like mine to be heard. In the beginning, I fought to make my sons proud. Then I fought for validation. Now, I simply fight for those who can't fight for themselves. I've made my peace with what happened to me all those years ago. I've learnt to live with the pain. The anger no longer consumes me. I now use it to fuel change. Change in policy, change in practice, change in perception. Change for all families. COVID won't stop me, because the new normal, well, it simply has to be better than the old. I'd like to finish this evening by reading a short poem that I've written. One of the many ways that Family Rights Group has helped me, and helps others like me, is by encouraging and supporting us to find ways to tell our stories, to use our voices to raise awareness. And one of the ways that I've found helpful is writing poetry. Arms full of presents, cards and wrapped toys, beautiful gifts for my beautiful boys. Trying to squeeze the rest of our lives into 45 minutes, and oh how it flies. Hugs and kisses enough to last years, singing songs and fighting back tears. Saying I love you over and over, while holding my babies closer and closer. Breathing their smell and hearing their laughter, as they head off to their happily ever after. Carrying them to the car of a stranger, smiling all the while feeling the traitor. This is not what I want, but I have to pretend. I have to smile like this isn't the end. I have to give them one last happy memory. I want this to be the way they remember me. I want them to leave without having to worry about what's left behind and what happened to Mummy. Pretending there's not a huge hole in my heart. Hiding the fact that I'm falling apart. Hoping I'll find the strength to carry on as I watch them drive away till they're gone. Then I fall to the floor and my heart breaks in two. How do I move on from this? I don't have a clue. But move on I must, because I made them a promise. I have to find a way through this darkness. And with tentative steps, I make changes and find that my past does not make my future defined. I find strength bit by bit, I find others who care. I begin to see that what happened wasn't fair. That whatever happened, I still have a choice. I can use what has happened, I can still use my voice. That I don't have to hide, feel worry or shame. I can help other people, I can bring about change. And that's what I've done with the grief and the pain. I've used my experiences to teach and to train. I've used my voice to fight for those that still suffer. I may not see my boys, but I can still be their mother. I can love with my fighting and teach with my actions. Our roots are the same, they're just different branches. They're not out of mind, they're just out of sight. I won't ever forget, and I won't stop the fight. Before I finish, if there's one thing I would like you to take away with you after hearing my story, it's the power of sharing your story. I never believed all those years ago that I would be here now talking to you all, that I would be proud of what I've overcome instead of ashamed of what I went through. Telling our stories breaks the stigma surrounding the issues so many of us are facing every day. We must speak out, show that we're not ashamed, that we're survivors. Our stories are our superpower, and they give us wings. So please, help us to find our voices and fly.
Thank you.
Well done, Angela.
Well done, Angela.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Angela, for everything you do and being part of our event this evening. And I just feel we've become such special friends over the last year. And I looked in the chat and someone wrote about you, and I hope you get a chance to look at how people have responded to what you're saying. And they said that the strength is shining in you, and that's it. You are a tower of strength. And I know this evening that there are many of the family rights group colleagues and panel members and people I've been training over the last year, and they're listening tonight. And I know how supportive you've been and encouraging as they also start that journey of publicly sharing their experiences to affect change. So you are doing an incredible amount. And if people listening to this have been affected by what you've heard, please do get in touch via the private message, and we can point you in the direction of places you can get support. But when I listen to Angela, the strength, the power, and just how far she's come, I think it's something that we should really take away with us. Our next speaker is Craig Spilane. Electrician by day, Craig is the founder of Men Unite, an organisation initially set up as a closed private group on Facebook to help men deal with any issues they face. Suicidal thoughts, depression and anxiety, stress, PTSD, addiction issues, debt, bereavement, or any associated issues. 84 men per week die through suicide in the UK. That's one man every 2 hours, and Craig is leading the way to lower that harrowing statistic. Tonight, he'll describe the impact of lockdown on men's mental health and how online support networks like Men Unite are providing a vital connection for men around the world. We know that some of what Craig talks about will be upsetting, and some of you might find it triggering. We'll be sharing details for support in the chat, but I'm delighted to welcome Craig Spilane.
I've been wrecking my brain over this speech for about 6 to 8 weeks now. You see, I've never really done anything like this. I even won an award last year, and I had to get up on stage and accept it in front of a packed room of business representatives and radio station executives. I was voted as a local hero for making a difference by the listeners of a commercial radio station. I was shocked, to say the least, me winning an award. I've been into prison 3 times over the years, and I've been into rehab with £1,000 a week cocaine addiction. Yet here I was up on stage, literally speechless, accepting an award for setting up a Facebook group simply to encourage men to speak. That group is called Men Unite, and it's literally changing men's lives. It's currently 6:10 a.m, just a week or so before I'm here now speaking to you all. Thank you for watching, by the way. I won't go on too much about the unprecedented times that we're living in. I'm sure, like me, you are sick to death of hearing the words COVID and pandemic. What I've done here is the typical modern man thing. I left it as late as I possibly could in the hope that it would go away or be forgotten about, or that I'd not have to deal with it. But thanks to my good friend Darren from Expert Citizens, here I am typing away in silence a speech. The TV volume is set to 4 and the family are all in bed still asleep. Today's modern man is statistically somewhat troubled, to say the least. Last year alone, there was 5,691 suicides registered in England. 4,303 of those were men, so that's almost 80%, or on average 12 men every day, 1 man every 2 hours who takes his own life. It's the single biggest killer of men under 50 in the UK. It's a harrowing statistic, and it's one I'm passionate about changing. Imagine the ripple effect of it. The heartbroken families and friends are all left behind. Right, let's talk about Men Unite. It was on April the 10th, 2019, and I was sat on the toilet before work. This is the place that all great ideas come from, isn't it? I was just sat there scrolling through Facebook and catching up on the group chats that I'm in, and I was reading all of the negative posts and negative comments. I just thought about creating my own WhatsApp group, just for a few friends to join who I knew had been struggling, and to give them a way to connect. But then I decided a Facebook group might be easier. Say I wanted to add somebody and I didn't have his number. So I created Men Unite as a closed private group on Facebook, and I invited 20 or 30 of my friends from various backgrounds. I wrote this as the group's description that morning. This is a group for men. We are here to support and encourage and help our fellow men. If you have had or are having any issues, we want to talk to you. Whether it's addiction or you feel lost, whether it's addiction or if you've lost somebody that you love. If you feel alone or if you feel depressed or feel anxious, we want to help you. If you are in debt or feel that the world is caving in on you, we want to help you. As men, all too often we don't talk. We don't want to drop our guards and let people know our struggles, our fears and our secrets. We shut down, we close our emotions, we become selfish and distant. We slip more on the slope that we may have only had 1 foot on, and then it can consume us. I want us as a group to stop this cycle and break the stigma and make it okay to talk, to let our fellow men know that we are here and we are in this together. I'm looking for people willing to share their stories and experiences and give advice with us. Most importantly, talk to each other, or even privately, just one of us. Engage with somebody and share your troubles, and believe me, it will help you. So that was it. Men Unite was born. Throughout that very first day, I had loads of messages from mates asking questions. What's this group? Who's it for? Is it private? Can my missus see the posts? I assured them all that it was only members that could see, as it was a closed private group. The very first person who posted in Men Unite was my best friend, Ian. His post was brutally honest and open, and I knew that I'd created something special right there. Ian is the typical mate, typical male. In the pub, he's funny and he laughs and jokes with friends. When we're out in couples, he's a loving husband. We all get along so well. He's got a beautiful wife and gorgeous kids, a lovely house and a great stable job. So looking from the outside in, Ian would have the things that most men would envy. However, that didn't stop him from trying to take his own life. Over Christmas in 2018, I'd met Ian for a pint on what's traditionally called Black Friday, when all the pubs are rammed with people that you've hardly seen all year. Sounds quite ironic this year, doesn't it? So I had a few pints with Ian and said goodbye, catch up soon, have a great Christmas, blah, blah, blah. I think it was about the 21st of December or whatever the date was on that Friday. Then all of a sudden, before I knew it, it was New Year, and I thought I'd better ring Ian to see how his Christmas went. He didn't answer, and I thought nothing of it. A few days later, I eventually got in touch with Ian, And I remember the sound of his voice clearly. It was different. He sounded vacant. He told me that on the 23rd of December, he'd been sectioned and missed Christmas. He had tried to take an overdose. After what seemed like hours of talking, he finally opened up and simply said to me that Christmas had gotten too much for him. He was stressing over money, stressing about the kids. Now they're getting a little bit older. He didn't know what to buy them. He told me all this in confidence, of course, and asked me not to tell anybody. So I was really proud of him, and I was really proud of him that he found the courage to open up as the very first person on Men Unite. He'd not even told his family, yet here he was posting to 30 odd of our mutual friends. From that day one, Men Unite just snowballed. Friends joined in, and then they invited their friends, and so on and so on. We now have over 14,000 members and have reached 78 countries. We've got volunteers on hand 24 hours a day. Our admin team is based all over the world, places such as Australia, America, Canada. There's a team of around 20 of us on hand to offer support. Having members in the admin team worldwide, it means that any post put on or read by somebody within minutes, sometimes seconds. We've set up as a community interest company, and we offer various social activities for men. Football plays a big part. I think it brings men together. We are based at a non-league football ground, Hanley Town. We hope to open a drop-in centre there next year now. We've got a partnership with Stoke City FC, and we offer a service called Football to All, which just gives any sort of men, any abilities, the chance to play football. We've got fishing clubs, running clubs, walking clubs. We've even got blokes that just meet up and go and walk the dog. We've just launched our own podcast that's hosted by our amazing admin volunteer Biddy and Port Vale player and Men Unite ambassador Christian Montano. His own story is very powerful and moving, so please look out for that on our podcast. Even professional footballers can struggle with mental health issues. Since the start of lockdown, I've been busier than ever. Just before this pandemic started, we were looking at ways to make this a full-time job for me. That would be the dream eventually, but the lack of funding for mental health services is at breaking point throughout the entire UK. It's very difficult to do this right now, so I'm a full-time electrician and a full-time volunteer. The pandemic has seen men really, really struggle, just simply the change in their daily routines. Everyday things such as just going out to work. It's hard enough to get men to speak out anyway, but take away their work life and it's a very difficult change for them to deal with. Or their social outlets, such as simple things going out to watch the match with friends. These might have been the only places that they would actually think about venting or speaking out or letting anybody know that there's something was bothering them, or maybe letting down their guard a little bit. It's been a particularly tough time for those men who had issues prior to all this as well. Some of our members have really, really struggled, and heartbreakingly, we have lost a couple in the most devastating of circumstances. It's vital that groups like ours are on hand to offer support for men during their darkest days. In Stoke, as recently as last week, an 18-year-old jumped off the bridge onto the ring road around the city, tragically taking his own life. This is a public health crisis. We're on the verge of another pandemic, in my opinion, a mental health pandemic. I can see that we've come a long way in 18 short months. We are growing every day. The work is vital that we do, and we can only get bigger and get better, but more importantly, help men get better. We are Men Unite, and you are not weak if you speak.
Yeah.
Craig. So much amazing, Craig.
Thank you so much, Craig. How are you feeling, Craig?
Okay, not bad for a first effort.
Honestly, please just go through the chats, look at what people are saying to you, about Men Unite. You know, your work really matters. What keeps you going, Craig? What keeps you focused?
What keeps me going is the fact that I can hand on heart say that I've helped make a difference to men's lives. So if I can change one person's life and we can all work together, you know, that's what keeps me going, knowing that I've changed people's lives.
I mean, what's clear is your platform is needed more than ever. And what we're going to do, we're going to share in the chat all the details of Men Unite and other places for support. I can see from the chat that people have similar experiences and shared experiences. And Craig, you said you're happy for me to share your email address.
Yeah, it's dead simple. It's craig@menunite.org.
Yeah.
Feel
so
free
we'll
to drop
share
me line,
that.
anybody.
We'll share that in the chat as well.
Yeah,
and you know, it's clear there is a crisis with men's mental health, and we need to champion organisations like Men Unite. So thank you so much, Craig, for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, in the chat we'll have all the details for Men Unite, and again other places that people can go just for information and other sources of support. And I do want to thank, there's someone in the room called Darren Marinas, who's a friend of mine and connected me with Craig. So I really appreciate making that connection, because really how I get to meet a lot of the storytellers are in the room is when I'm introduced to people and people say, Jude, find out about this organisation, they're doing incredible work. And really, for me, that's really what, you know, just helps me get new ideas. So I want to introduce our final speaker, our fifth speaker, Onjali Rauf. So Onjali and I met 4 years ago through the charity Nisanishim that brings together Jewish and Muslim women to build mutual understanding and conversation. Onjali and I sat next to each other at a meeting, and honestly, within that moment, we have become friends for life. Onjali is an incredible woman. You might have heard her on Woman's Hour this morning. She's a campaigner and founder of the not-for-profit Making Her Story, working with agencies large and small. It works to mobilise people from all walks of life to support women's shelters, lobby for women's rights, and join anti-trafficking movements. Onjali is also an award-winning children's author. Her debut children's book, The Boy at the Back of the Class, highlighted the refugee crisis from a child's perspective, and it won the Blue Peter Children's Book of the Year 2019 and the Waterstones Children's Book of the Year in that same year, 2019. I found out last week that it sold 250,000 copies around the world, which is incredible. Her second book, The Star Outside My Window, focuses on the tragic impacts of domestic violence on the lives of children. And her third book, The Night Bus Hero, which she finished during lockdown, is released tomorrow. So I would like to, just before I introduce Onjali, I'll tell you a bit about The Night Bus Hero and the context for it. As the eviction ban is lifted, furlough schemes end, there are fears of a new wave of homelessness in the UK and London. Over 4,000 individuals were sleeping rough as of 2019, 28% more than in 2018. I'll say that again. In London, over 4,000 individuals were sleeping rough as of 2019 and 28% more than in 2018. Something needs to change. Told from the perspective of a bully, The Night Bus Hero explores themes of bullying and homelessness while celebrating kindness, friendship, and the potential everyone has to change for the good. I have got my book here, and I would like to have a very warm welcome to Onjali.
Oh gosh, hi everyone. Jude, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And Craig, gosh, you're such a hero. Everyone that's spoken tonight is just absolutely stunning in what they're trying to do and changing the world for the better. So I'm going to ask you, what does an armchair, a large packet of frozen peas, bird's eye, and a bus map have to do with life in lockdown? In my world, an awful lot, because without them, I definitely would not have been able to write The Night Bus Hero, my third children's book, and one which, in an almost ironic twist of fate, was destined to focus on the issue of homelessness at a time in the world's history when being without a home seemed more unfathomable and unacceptable than ever before. sitting in my armchair day after day, night after night, week after week, trying to force a story out of me was not a natural state to be in. Hearing sirens around me every half hour here in London, or hearing the phone ring incessantly with yet more sad news of family and loved ones who we had heard hadn't survived this pandemic, was not a natural state in which to be creative in. In fact, sitting and writing a children's story in the midst of so much pain and grief and deep helplessness seemed at times like an insult to the memories of my loved ones that I'd lost. But there was one thing that kept me going, and one image that made me strap those bags of frozen peas to my legs to stop them from spasming and write on. And that was the image of a man sleeping by the steps of my local police station, which has remained seared in my brain since the age of 14. Now, I first saw this man on my way to a friend's house one morning for our usual walk to school together. He had a grey, white, fluffy beard, a flat, woolly hat, an old black coat, and parked right beside him was a trolley full of neatly folded newspapers, piled so high that they looked like mini tower blocks. I remember feeling really shocked that someone who was old enough to be my granddad was having to sleep on flattened out cardboard boxes with nothing but some thin blankets and newspaper sheets to help him stay warm. The next day, on my way to school, there he was again, and sleeping right there by the police station, and the next day, and the next day after that, and the following days too, but not just at the police station. I also began to notice him wandering up and down my local high street as well. Now, me at 14, just to give you an idea, I was really, really shy. I was lacking in too much, I was just lacking in confidence to ask anyone if they needed any help, let alone a homeless man, even though I desperately wanted to ask him and to speak to him. I had a massive fringe, so my fringe literally practically hid half my face, and I had really big round NHS glasses to hide myself behind, so I just stare at him every morning as I passed by. And I imagine, being stared at by a slightly pudgy, very spotty Asian girl every morning was a little bit strange for the old man, and perhaps a little bit funny too, because after a week or two of seeing me, he began to grin and give me a small wave as well. And that was all it took, really. It was all it took for me to decide to do something. Almost immediately after that first wave, instead of just staring at him like an owl and hurrying past every morning, I began to stop and leave him something. Usually it was just a piece of fruit or a slightly squashed box of biscuits. But on the days when I had a bit of pocket money and I felt a bit richer, it was a portion of fish and chips or a hot breakfast meal from McDonald's, which was literally a few hundred yards away. But even through those moments of gifting, I was still too shy. I just couldn't speak to him. I was too scared to speak to someone who was still a stranger to me. So I'd silently just kind of run up to him, hand out whatever I had, and then run off again, kind of like a little bit of a criminal. Now, this went on for a good few years, and I got to know the old man's patterns and his likes and dislikes. So spring and summer, he was often by the police station in his makeshift bed, which he would pack away really neatly when he went off to hunt for food and newspapers from the local bins. He loved fried chicken and chips. He loved fish and chips. And he also really liked McDonald's hot chocolate with a side of apple pie. He hated coffee, really hated it, and he hated filet of fish, I think because of the tartar sauce. Now, come October, so round about this time of the year, he would just disappear. And I often hoped that it was because he'd found a shelter that was looking after him and feeding him and keeping him warm. And then come the warmer spring days, there he'd be again, right by the police station. Now, as I said, time passed and I moved on from secondary school to college. And luckily my bus stop for college was right next to the police station. So our kind of silent friendship continued for a couple of years as well after I started college. I began to drop off fruit every morning. And then on the way home from college, I would drop off something hot for him to have as well. But then one morning around Easter, I began to notice that the old man wasn't really there anymore, and his trolley was gone and his makeshift bed was gone as well. And he was still missing the next day and the next day after that. And I began to feel really in my gut that something was wrong. So I mustered up the courage finally to go into the police station and ask if anyone had seen the old man that slept by the staircase. The answer I received, as short as it was one of the first things I heard that really shook me to my core. I was told by the police officer that I was speaking to that the old man had died a few nights ago. And when I asked him if anyone knew anything about him, the officer simply shrugged and said, not really, but everyone called him Thomas. So everyone called him Thomas. Who knows if that was even his real name, but that's what he became to me. He became Thomas. To say I felt really devastated would be just a beginning. Thomas had really become to be a large part of my world. I loved seeing him nearly every day, and the silent grins and thumbs up and waves he would give me whenever he saw me were really something that I looked forward to. And not only was he suddenly gone, but I had never even had the courage to ask him his name or to ask him what his story was, how he'd ended up sleeping on the streets, or even ask him one of the single questions, the single one of the 10,000 questions I had had in my head over the years. Now, just before he died, my mum had actually come to know of Thomas. She'd seen me giving him food. So what she'd begun to do was to give me a few extra pounds a week to try and help him out in some way, or give me an extra packet of crisps or some fruit in my bag to leave with him. So I actually had no excuse not to speak to him. I had no excuse not to actually kind of try and get to know him. So I wasn't just devastated at Thomas's passing. I was really angry at myself as well for being too shy and too scared to find out his story and maybe help him a little bit too. The summer of Thomas's passing was the summer that kind of changed my life, because that was the summer that I started to work at my mum's welfare advice charity and housing charity. It's now called the Limehouse Project, and it is in Tower Hamlets. It helps thousands of people a year keep their homes, stops them from becoming homeless, and access the help that they need to stay safe. And that was also a summer that I made a promise to myself. That promise was that I would try and speak more, that I would run away less, and I would always try and recognize people who are in need of help and have the courage to speak with them. It doesn't always work. Some days my courage really fails me and my tongue runs for the Bahamas. And more than one crucial occasion, I get too shy again. But it's really because of Thomas that I began to find my way and place in the world. Knowing him led me to beginning all the works that has led me to write the books. And the memory of him is what really helped me get through lockdown and produce a story in the midst of it, as crazy as that seems sometimes. So here it is, the Night Bus Hero, featuring a homeless man called Thomas, written in the memory of a man called Thomas, and it's kind of forged in hope, the hopes that it will help little ones, teachers, parents, grandparents start discussions around how we might be able to help all the Thomases of our world. Not just through this pandemic 2.0 that's about to come our way, but also afterwards and for all time, so that they can have a place to shield in and be safe in for the rest of their lives. Now, just to end, I'm going to read a very short paragraph, and just to give you a kind of background as to what's happened. Hector, who's the kind of anti-hero of the story, he's a bit of a bully. He's had a very bad day. He's had an embarrassing day. He's with his two best friends who are making fun of him, and he suddenly has an idea when he sees the homeless man called Thomas standing before him. We reached the top of the hill where an old bench stood beneath the oak trees. And that's when I spotted him, the old man. I'd seen him there before, lots of times, sitting on the bench next to a trolley piled high with rubbish. He was in his usual long, old, crumply black coat that looked as if it had been pulled out from a bin, and was wearing the bright yellow woolly hat he always had on his head, even in summer. And without even trying, I had the most genius idea that had ever been born. In fact, it was so genius and so out of the box and so unexpected that I knew it would be enough to make Will and Katie shut up once and for all. I stopped walking, which made Will and Katie automatically stop too. "Want to have some fun?" I asked. Will nodded, a smile breaking out across his face. "See that old man there?" I asked, pointing towards the bench. "You mean the old trolley man?" asked Katie. "Yeah, we're going to let him know he's not allowed here anymore." "How?" whispered Katie, leaning in towards me. I waited for a few seconds to keep them guessing, and then whispered back, "I'm going to take his hat." Now, I know that lots of you here tonight will know will know homeless communities or know of homeless communities. You might have a Thomas in your life who you might smile and wave to. It might be a big issue seller. It might be someone who's sleeping rough in your area. It might be someone who's going to a women's refuge and trying to find some safety there. Whether they're invisible or visible, we can all do something to help our homeless. And please remember that nothing you do is ever too small. So whether it's, you know, putting an extra pot of cereal in your local supermarket food bank, or contacting your MP to find out what they're going to do to make sure our homeless aren't turfed back out on the streets, or talking to someone about a brilliant charity or a person you've just met, all of it makes a difference and creates endless ripple effects that you might not ever really see the end of. Now, COVID-19 showed us that every single borough, no matter how rich or poor or big or small, had the space to shelter every single one of our rough sleepers, all 4,000 of them. And when push comes to shove, that we can also do it in a weekend. If we can do it in a weekend, then surely we should be able to do it for all time. But to make that happen, I know that every single one of us, no matter our status or income or whatever it is that we might or might not have, needs to speak up. We need to give that smile to someone who might be sleeping rough. We need to make sure that we're speaking about our homeless to each other, and make sure that actually the powers that be know that we're not going to accept our homeless being turfed out again. So that's me. Thank you so much for listening to me, and yeah, for hearing me read a little bit of The Night Bus Hero as well.
Yay! Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Onjali. Are you still with me? Can you hear me? Will you take yourself off mute?
Yes, I can hear you, Jude.
So, how, you know, what an incredible book. I've got it by my bed. I'm waiting to read it. How does it feel, you know, being a voice through your books about so many different issues? How does it feel?
Well, sometimes it gets busy in my head, and I feel like I can't keep up with everything. But it's such an honor, Jude. It's such an honor. I never thought that this would happen, that I'd be able to merge, you know, children's book world with the issues that are really close to my heart. But to see the kids and their reactions to what we're speaking about, whether it's refugees or women fleeing domestic violence or homelessness, it's staggering, and it gives me so much hope. You know, we've just seen Nylah and Alex, and they have voices, and those voices are loud, and they're not going anywhere. They know what's wrong, and they know that actually they can have a part to play in rectifying things. So I've seen hundreds and thousands of kids throughout the past 3 years who are not willing to take the status quo, and are willing to ask questions, and it gives me such honor that they're using the books and stories to make that happen. So yeah, it's amazing. Finding it difficult at times to keep up with everything, but other than that, it's staggering and surreal.
I mean, I am obviously your #1 fan, but I do look on Twitter and see the responses from teachers to your books, and you know, just this week seeing a teacher share that they had a refugee from Syria in their room, and that the book has helped that child open up, and that there was another child also from Syria who wrote a story about his uncle. How does that keep you going? Does that keep you?
Oh, absolutely. So, like, you know, I wear this not just because of my faith, but also I have no hair left, you know, everything's just grey under there. But it's totally worth it. Every single moment of pain and strapping peas to my legs or whatever it is totally worth it when I hear what the kids are using and doing with the books. And the fact that, you know, it's helping in some way. I never expected any of that to happen. So it's just bonus after bonus, really.
Well, it's incredible. You now have like hundreds of people who are now talking about The Boy at the Back of the Class, The Star Outside My Window, and The Night Bus Hero. And thank you so much. What people may not know is Onjali has actually given us 10 books to people who've come this evening. So I can tell you who has got these books. So Laura Ashurst, Gemma Petman, Sally Flatman, Natasha Rowe, Hannah Green, Colin Falconer, Wes Hinks, Joe Gooden, MD, and Darren Marinas. You all get a copy of the book, and we will be in touch tomorrow about sending them to you. And if you weren't on that list, and if you want to get a copy, your own signed copy of The Night Bus Hero or any of the books, we've got a partnership today with Newham Books, which is Onjali's local bookshop. I think it's 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
They're our special partner this evening, and we'll arrange that if you get in contact with them, they'll arrange to get you a signed copy.
Yeah,
Details
I'll be signing them.
are going to be in the chat, and we'll share details in an email tomorrow. But Onjali, good luck with the launch of the book tomorrow. I love your earrings.
Thank you. I'm so glad you noticed.
Look at the chat.
Only for you.
Everyone noticed. Everyone noticed. And I've got the copy. And actually, I've got a box behind me of about another 20. So everyone's getting these as presents. So thank you so much. And really, thank you for everything you do. And do take time to look at the chat so you can hear what people are saying to you.
Thank you so much.
To you and about you. It's all very good. So, as we saw at the beginning, we've got our own artist in residence this evening, and we'd love to see what you've created, Mel. Wow. That just looks so fantastic. Hear our voices and fly, fuel change. Wow. So what we're going to make sure is we're going to make sure that everyone will see the final design, and that all the speakers will get a copy as well of the picture that Mel is designing. But Mel, can you hear me? I want to ask you a question. Can you hear me? Let's see.
Yes.
Yes. So as a visual illustrator and being an artist in residence, what have you got from this evening? Just listening, immersing and doing the visuals.
It was really hard because the stories were so breathtakingly beautiful. You know, I just wanted to listen rather than draw. But yeah, I hope I can capture the stories the way that they were meant to be shared. And yeah, it's just been a magical evening, and every speaker has just touched my heart. So thank you. It's been really emotional, but beautiful.
And what are you taking away from this evening?
Well, that we have a voice and that we need to tell our stories. Yeah, and we need to join forces and make sure that we tell each other's stories as well. So I will be taking these stories and sharing them with my community in Coventry and letting everybody that I know hear all about you guys. So brilliant. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mel, for being here today. And I look forward to sharing the drawings with everyone. So thank you. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone who's spoken this evening, to Nylah, gorgeous Nylah, amazing Alex, Angela, Craig, Onjali. I feel absolutely privileged to have hosted this evening. And I want to thank my colleague Helena, because without her, events like this simply wouldn't happen. And our behind the scenes team for this evening, Jensen, Maisie and Kirsty. And thank you for joining us this evening. We know evenings are your free time, but I really hope that you've enjoyed this evening. All the details of our guests are on the event website, and we'll be in touch tomorrow with links to other useful information. And again, for those who missed the beginning, we will make sure you get hold of the whole programme. Please do share your thoughts in the chat or on Twitter using the hashtag #BeingTheStory. And this is our first event that we've done via Zoom. We would normally be in a venue like Conway Hall. So I'd love to hear what you thought about the format and about this evening. So do look out for the really short feedback survey form that's in the chat, and it's also going to be in our email tomorrow. Over the course of this evening, I hope you'll agree we have heard some inspiring and important stories and have been moved and reminded of why the work we do is so important. Our mission at Sound Delivery will continue to champion and support new voices and leaders who are experts through experience. I hope tonight has given you ideas and tools to champion storytellers and leaders in your own communities. And if we can help in any way, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We hope that we'll host another evening like this in the future, so do let us know. In the meantime, thank you for coming. Good night. I'm going to let people just share in the chat and ease your way out, so I'm not going to press bump, you know, but have a safe journey home. You don't have far to go, and have a good evening. Good night.